They said it like a joke, but it didn't land like one. She thinks she's gonna sell lavender soap online and retire early. Jolene cackled across the counter, her perfectly manicured fingers flipping a price tag on a $92 artisan tray made in some Chinese factory. I didn't respond. I just slid my card across the counter. She snatched the receipt from my hand like I was stealing. That was the first day I ever stepped into Magnolia Mercantile. I'd come in looking for ribbon for my daughter's school fundraiser baskets. I left with a receipt that would haunt me, mock me, fuel me. What they didn't know was that I was already selling on Etsy. Quietly, from my laundry room, after bedtime. Lavender soap, sure, but also eucalyptus scrubs, handmade coasters, cheeky mugs, and custom wreaths that I made while the dishwasher hummed and the dog snored at my feet. They, meaning Jolene, her husband Brent, and their daughter Felicity, owned that boutique. And they owned the town's attention too, especially Felicity. Everyone knew Felicity and my husband Wade had history. Old flames, high school sweethearts who broke up when she moved to Nashville to sing professionally, and he married me instead. Still, she always had that look when we ran into her, like she'd lost a man and I'd stolen a boy. But I ignored all of that, for years, until the day Felicity dropped a comment on one of my Instagram posts. So cute. My 6-year-old niece just made soap too. She added a winking emoji. The comment had 5 likes. One of them was my husband. That night I stayed in my car for 15 minutes before going inside. Just breathing, just processing. When I finally walked in, Wade was eating leftover chili in front of the TV. He barely looked up. "How was your craft thing?" I said nothing. If silence had a taste, it would have been copper that night, like blood and bitterness. I didn't sleep. Instead, I clicked publish on listings I'd been too afraid to share. I updated product photos. I DM'd a woman in Austin about wholesale eucalyptus bundles. And I made a decision. They could keep laughing. For now. Because the next time I walked into Magnolia Mercantile, I'd have a different kind of receipt in hand. I wasn't supposed to hear it, but I did. It was 2 Christmases ago. I had just come down early to start the cinnamon rolls, still in my robe hair, matted from sleep. Wade was out on the porch with his brother sipping coffee in the cold. The sliding glass door wasn't shut all the way. She was just supposed to be a rebound, you know, Wade's voice low gravelly. But then she got pregnant with Rosie, and well, you know how Mom would have flipped if I left. He didn't even say my name, just she. I stood there, fingers frozen mid-slice into a roll of Pillsbury dough, feeling something unbake inside me. The rest of the day I smiled like I was stitched together with fishing line. Pulled tight, just enough to hold. That's when it really started, this obsession with proving I was more than just some accidental wife with a craft thing. I didn't have a business degree. I'd dropped out of junior college after Rosie was born, and Wade picked up extra shifts at his dad's HVAC company. But I had ideas. I had hands that never stopped moving, and I had silence. So much silence. That's the thing about quiet women, we build empires in our heads, while everyone else assumes we're folding laundry. My Etsy shop started picking up after I posted my first video on TikTok. It was just me wrapping a lemon verbena candle in craft paper with twine. I added a Taylor Swift song and whispered the caption, "When your ex's new wife buys your candle to impress her brunch group." I wasn't talking about me. Not exactly, but I knew what I was doing. The video hit 50K views overnight. Orders poured in. My shop name, Porchlight and Sage, was suddenly being tagged in best small business gift ideas by influencers with pearl manicures and $200 hair dryers. I didn't tell Wade. I didn't tell anyone. 'Cause I knew what they'd do. They'd laugh again. Like Jolene did that day I asked if Magnolia Mercantile took consignment from local artisans. "Sweetheart," she'd said, tapping her pen on the counter. "We don't do, like, Etsy-level things. We're more elevated." But I saw the way she looked at my basket of candles. Like she wanted to steal them. Like she was already calculating how much more she could charge for them. I left her store that day with my basket still full, but my heart oddly emptier. Until I got the DM. From Felicity. "Hey, Wade says you've been making candles. Would love to feature some in our Valentine's display. Let me know." It wasn't kindness. It was bait. And I was already swimming toward the hook. I told myself I was imagining it. The scent. The timing. The way Wade's shirt smelled faintly like Chanel lipstick when he came home from checking on a leaking HVAC unit at the Mercantile. It clung to him like guilt, not obvious enough to accuse, but too sharp to ignore. That same night, Felicity posted a story on Instagram, a slow pan of the boutique, her giggling in the background. Wade in the corner with his tool belt slung low and his hat pushed back. She captioned it, When your ex still shows up to fix your life, Mar handyman with history. The comments were worse. He's still cute though. Girl, you fumbled and still got the perks. Does his wife know she's renting a man we all crushed on in high school? I read them in the dark under the covers while Wade slept next to me with his back turned. And still, I wrapped 3 of my best-selling rosewood candles the next morning and walked them to the mercantile. Felicity greeted me at the door, draped in a vintage peacoat I'd seen her wear in a photo with Wade from their senior prom. She acted surprised I came like it was my honor to be summoned. Oh, good, you brought the candles. We'll do a little tester run and see how they perform. Her voice was syrup over poison. I forced a smile. Of course. I made a few extra for the window display if you'd like. She nodded, already turning away. Just drop them by the counter. I've got a conference call with some Nashville buyers in 10. The boutique was empty, quiet, every shelf curated with things that pretended to be handmade, faux leather journals aged by artisans, machine-pressed mugs claiming to be wheel-thrown, and candles labeled as small batch but carried a mass-produced barcode. I placed mine on the counter right next to a sign that read, "Support women-owned businesses." Oh, the irony. When I got home that night, Wade was already in the shower. I noticed his flannel shirt on the hamper. I lifted the collar to my face. Chanel. Felicity. I almost dropped it, almost let the truth burn me right then and there. But no, not yet. I had orders to pack. That night I poured a new candle batch, but this time I named the scent something different. Lipstick and Lies, with notes of rosewood vanilla and betrayal. And when I posted it on TikTok with a simple caption, "Inspired by the scent of another woman's mouth on your man," it hit 200,000 views in 3 days. The orders crashed my site, and still Wade never asked what I was doing every night until 2 a.m. in the garage, because he wasn't paying attention, because he was too busy fixing leaks. Because he was too proud to believe the girl who dropped out of college was about to own the whole damn block. It was a Saturday in early spring, the kind where the breeze pretends to be warm and the town forgets it's still only March. Magnolia Mercantile hosted their annual spring sip-and shop, free mimosas, overpriced soaps, and live music on the sidewalk. Felicity posted about it like she always did, bringing Nashville vibes to Main Street. In the video, she twirled under pastel streamers, holding a mimosa in one hand and Wade's shoulder with the other. Casual. Too casual. "You coming with us?" Wade had asked earlier that morning, buttoning a shirt that still smelled faintly floral. I'd shrugged. Rosie has dance practice. He didn't press, just kissed the top of my head, distant, robotic, and left. But I did go. Not because I cared about spring soap or flute glasses, because I needed to see it with my own eyes. I parked 2 blocks down, slipped on sunglasses, and tucked my hair into a scarf. I looked like the kind of woman who visited towns like ours on purpose, urban, detached a tourist to other people's small-town drama. When I stepped onto the sidewalk, the air was thick with lavender oil and fake laughter. I walked past vendors selling candles that weren't mine, hand creams from catalogs, and bath bombs stamped local that had Ohio return addresses. Then I saw them. Wade and Felicity. She was perched behind a checkout table, legs crossed like a secret. He stood in front of her hand, resting casually on the edge, leaning in as she laughed, not with her mouth, but with her eyes. And he smiled. That stupid, crooked smile I used to think was mine. And then she reached for something, a candle, I thought. But no, it was his hand. She held it. Quick, soft, but not friendly. Not we're just old friends, soft, intimate, reflexive, like it had happened before, like it wasn't the first time. I felt my lungs collapse around the air. I turned around and walked away, fast, like something was chasing me because it was, my old life unraveling behind me. When I got home, I sat on the garage floor between boxes of wax and inventory and cried for the first time in months. Not because I was surprised, but because I wasn't. When I finally calmed down, I did something I hadn't dared before. I opened my Etsy seller dashboard, and I smiled. I was averaging 90 orders a day. My conversion rate was 5 times higher than the platform average. I had messages from buyers asking if I did private label, and 3 boutiques in Dallas had emailed about stocking my candles after my last viral post. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Felicity. "Hey, we sold out of the rosewood scent. Can you drop off 12 more? I stared at it for a long time, then I typed back, "Sure, I'll bring them tomorrow." But what I brought wasn't just candles. It was bait and blood. And war. The next morning I woke before sunrise, not to pour candles, not to restock, but to create a reckoning. I printed new labels for the rosewood batch Felicity claimed they sold out of, but I didn't use my usual branding. No. Each candle had a cream sticker wrapped around its base, discreet but deliberate. The scent name, still Rosewood and Rain, was untouched. But beneath that, in tiny cursive font, I added a line. Hand poured the day he told me it was just a business call. Each label carried a different version. Hand poured the night he came home smelling like her. Hand poured the morning after she posted that photo of his toolbox. Hand poured while he forgot our anniversary. Again. 15 candles, 15 lies. Wrapped in ribbon, neatly boxed, delivered in silence. When I walked into the boutique that morning, Jolene was hunched over the cash register counting change like it was her legacy. She barely looked up. Just set 'em by the display, honey. Felicity was in the back. I could hear her laughing through the beaded curtain, the kind of laugh women use when they've won something. Or someone. I placed each candle with surgical precision. Arranged them in a pyramid on the rustic shelf next to the fake succulents and overpriced throw pillows. 15 confessions, hidden in plain sight. I didn't say goodbye. When I walked back to my car, I didn't cry this time. I turned up the radio and hummed along with Stevie Nicks. That afternoon, I watched the boutique's Instagram stories. There they were, the candles glistening in soft afternoon light, tagged with a cute filter and a caption that said, "Back in stock. Our best-selling scent is back with a secret twist. Come see what everyone's whispering about." Whispering. She didn't know what she'd done. Not yet. But the comments rolled in like a slow tidal wave. Is this real? These are breakup candles, y'all? Is this tea? I just read the bottom of mine. Wait, is this about someone specific? The label, screaming, Felicity girl. You okay? This feels personal. It went viral. Not on my account, on hers. Felicity thought she was in control. That I was just a supplier, a tired wife with a hobby. She didn't realize I had turned her storefront into my confessional. And Wade? That night he noticed the order slips spread out on the kitchen counter, the shipping labels, the stack of PayPal deposits. He frowned. What's all this? I didn't look up. My real job. He blinked. Since when are you making real money with this stuff? I laughed, really laughed, and slid one of the empty candle jars across the table. The label faced him. Hand poured the day you looked me in the eyes and lied. He read it, and he didn't say a damn thing. Just stood there, mouth open, eyes narrowing, because now he knew. I wasn't the one who should be ashamed. He was, but I wasn't done yet. The storefront, oh, I had plans for it. After all, there was a for lease sign going up next door, and I'd just found a loophole in their lease agreement. All I needed now was a lawyer. You'd be surprised how many people in a small town will give you advice the moment you look like you've stopped needing it. I hadn't told anyone what Wade had done. Not yet. But word travels differently when a woman starts walking a little taller. Suddenly, women I hadn't spoken to since PTA days were slipping me business cards, side-eyeing the mercantile, asking questions they pretended were casual. You ever thought about opening your own shop? I heard Felicity's dad left the property to a trust, not to her directly. Lease might be tricky. Tricky, that was putting it politely. I went to City Hall and pulled the public records. Magnolia Mercantile didn't own their building. Felicity and Jolene leased it from a holding trust, set up by Jolene's late husband, which meant certain terms could be challenged. But I didn't know how to navigate all that legal language. That's when I met Marla the barista at the new coffee shop across from the Mercantile. She had a pixie-cut sleeve tattoos and an ex-husband who happened to be a contract lawyer. "You're not the first woman Felicity screwed over," she said, handing me my latte with a smile that meant war. "Call Alan. He helped me get my bakery space back when her mother tried to influence my landlord." Alan was older, quiet, and wore thick tortoiseshell glasses that made him look like a worn-out owl. He barely blinked when I explained the situation. "Let me guess," he said, flipping through the Mercantile's lease. "They're in default on Clause 14B. I blinked. "What's Clause 14B? He pushed the paper toward me, tapping the line. "Subletting shelf space without landlord approval." My heart stopped. "You mean they can't legally sell third-party products without approval from the property trustee? That includes your candles." I leaned back in my chair, stunned. He looked at me, calm as a winter pond. "Do you want to press it now, or wait until you've secured your own retail offer?" I thought of Felicity's lips on Wade's collar, the way she smiled with his name in her mouth, the way Jolene had smirked when she said Etsy level. I smiled back at Alan. "Let's wait, I'm not done cooking yet." That weekend I didn't drop off candles. Felicity texted twice, then called. Then posted a story. "So sad when small businesses can't keep up with demand. We'll be replacing our candle vendor soon." She didn't tag me, but I didn't need a tag. I posted a video instead. Me walking slowly through an empty retail space 2 doors down from the Mercantile. Exposed brick, dusty windows, a caption across the screen. Sometimes the best revenge is 200 square feet and your name on the deed. It hit 1 million views in 4 days. And that wasn't the best part. The best part. Jolene called me. I heard you're sniffing around the old bakery building, she said, voice tight. You wouldn't be trying to compete with us, would you? I let the silence stretch. Then I said, Oh, Jolene, I'm not competing. I hung up. 'Cause I wasn't just building a shop. I was building proof that a woman they laughed at was about to buy the very space they believed they owned. The paper was signed on a Thursday. By Friday, the keys were in my hand. 1 to 200 square feet of dust, broken light fixtures, and potential. The old bakery had been empty since COVID swept through town like a silent thief, stealing livelihoods and leaving ghosts in window displays. But I didn't see decay. I saw freedom. I stood in the center of the room with Rosie's old boombox playing Fleetwood Mac from a paint-splattered stool, and I cried. Not because I was scared, but because for the first time in over a decade, my life was finally mine. And then he walked in. Wade, no text, no call, just the jingle of the front doorbell, and there he was, standing in the doorway of my store like he still had a right to be part of this chapter. I saw the post, he said. Didn't think you were serious. I wiped the sweat off my brow with the back of my hand. You didn't think I was serious when I said I wanted to start an Etsy shop either. He looked around, exposed brick-fresh paint samples on the wall, a vision board pinned to cork like gospel. What's the plan? I turned to him slowly. Why you gonna tell her? His jaw clenched. Felicity and I... That wasn't... Don't insult me, I cut in. I know what it was. You chose to humiliate me. Quietly. Repeatedly. I'm not crying about it anymore, Wade. I'm building because of it. He looked like a boy who'd wandered too far into the woods. You really gonna compete with her like this? I almost laughed. Wade, I'm not competing with her. I stepped forward, voice steady. I'm replacing her. He flinched like I'd slapped him. For a long second, he just stared at me, then voice low. You used to be gentle. No, Wade, I used to be tired. He didn't know what to say to that. Just turned and walked out like he had every time I asked for more than half his attention. That night, I poured a new batch of candles. They weren't for Etsy. They were for here. For Porchlight and Sage, the name painted in bold strokes across the new sign that would hang in the window next week. I added a new scent to the collection. Shame and Sawdust. Top notes bourbon vanilla charred cedar. Base quiet rage. And the label? Hand-poured the day I stopped needing your permission. By Sunday, the town was buzzing. Someone posted my new storefront on the community Facebook page. Exciting to see fresh business owners downtown. Felicity left a comment under it. Good luck to the new candle shop. I hope they know how to manage inventory better than we do. The likes rolled in. So did the private DMs. She's scared. That's why she's loud. Team U. Her nice girl act is falling apart. I bought your candle, and now my husband's sleeping on the couch. That's how good it smells. And then came the email. From a regional buyer for a chain of boutique wellness shops. She saw my viral video. Loved the story. Wanted to talk wholesale. Wade had walked out of my life like it was a house fire, but I'd already built a new one. And Felicity, she was about to learn what it felt like, to live in the shadow of a woman she tried to erase. It came in a manila envelope dropped off by a courier with too much cologne and not enough eye contact. A cease and desist. From Felicity Harper acting on behalf of Magnolia Mercantile, claiming I was creating intentional confusion in the market and leveraging proprietary scent formulations she had co-developed. I laughed so hard I nearly burned a batch of shame and sawdust. I hadn't copied a damn thing. Those proprietary scents she mentioned, they were mine. Every candle she ever sold from me came from my hands, my garage, my grief. The only thing Felicity ever co-developed was a fantasy where she stole what wasn't hers and made it smell like roses. Still, I read every line of the letter, twice, and then a third time while sipping red wine from a mug that said wife, mother, entrepreneur, problem. A mug I'd just designed for next month's product drop. Then I printed out the cease and desist, slid it into a golden frame, and hung it behind the register in my new store, right next to my first Etsy sale printout. A reminder that their panic was proof. The same week, Alan, my lawyer, sent her a response. 2 pages of calm surgical dismantling. There were no trademarked scent names. There were no signed vendor exclusivity agreements. And most importantly, her lease was still in violation of Clause 14b. Alan's final paragraph read, "We are willing to drop the matter provided Magnolia Mercantile ceases to sell, promote, or reference any product originating from the Porchlight and Sage line retroactively or forward-facing." Additionally, we reserve the right to file an injunction should false claims continue to be made. I sent it with a gift. A candle, one I'd poured that morning. Limited edition. Cease and desist. Top notes, sharp lemon black pepper. Base ash and sweet almond. Label read, hand poured the day you remembered who made your bestseller. She didn't post that one on Instagram, but someone in town saw it on her desk, and well, you know how gossip moves. By the end of that week, foot traffic at my store doubled. A local influencer tagged Porchlight and Sage in a reel titled, Where I Buy Candles That Smell Like Closure. And the mayor's wife, yes, the mayor's wife booked me for a private event. Said she wanted to uplift local women who didn't come from money but were building legacies anyway. She was talking about me. I stayed up all night designing a new product line for the event, the Legacy Collection. Sent names like Still Standing, Divorce Agreement. This is what healing smells like. Each label included the real date. I found something out, a lie, a betrayal, a truth that set me free. They weren't just candles. They were receipts with a wick. And then Rosie found the framed cease and desist on the wall. She looked up at me confused. What's that, Mama? I knelt down beside her. That's what fear looks like, baby. When someone tries to scare you quiet. She blinked. Did it work? I kissed her forehead. No, it made me louder. It was raining. The kind of rain that's too loud for a small-town wind pushing the trees like they owed it something thunder that made your teeth hum. Porchlight and Sage was supposed to be closed, but I stayed late. The Legacy Collection had sold out in under 48 hours. The mayor's wife posted a glowing review. Local women I'd never spoken to were tagging their friends under my reels, calling my candles truth bombs in glass. I was halfway through restocking Still Standing when I heard the bell over the door. I froze. I knew that sound too well. Jolene Harper. She stood in the doorway in a cream trench coat soaked halfway to her knees, her makeup slightly smudged like she hadn't meant to cry but had. Evenin', I said, not pausing from labeling. She didn't speak, just looked around slowly at the shelves, the warm lighting the display table with hand-calligraphed scent cards. Then her eyes stopped at the framed cease and desist behind the register. You're enjoying this, she finally said, voice tight. I'm surviving this, I answered. She looked older in my lighting, softer, or maybe just tired. You embarrassed Felicity. She's been hiding out at home all week. I leaned against the counter. She embarrassed me for years. You just didn't notice. Jolene blinked. That girl, she's not cruel. Just impulsive. She slept with my husband. Silence, heavy, sharp. And then Jolene did something I didn't expect. She sat down. On the velvet stool I had by the sample bar. Hands folded in her lap, rain still dripping from her coat. I told her not to, she whispered. Told her he wasn't worth that kind of mess. But she wouldn't listen, said he always looked at her like she was the one who got away. I stiffened. She was right, Jolene continued. He always made you look like the afterthought. I didn't know whether to scream or thank her. So what now, I asked. You here to make peace? Jolene shook her head slowly. No, I'm here to ask if you'd consider buying us out. I blinked. What? Our lease is on thin ice. Your lawyer made that clear. The board that controls the trust. Well, let's just say they liked your Instagram a lot more than Felicity's. I stared at her. You want me to buy Magnolia Mercantile? I want to retire. And Felicity? She needs to learn what it means to lose something and still go on. I didn't answer. Not yet. Because something inside me wanted to say yes out of revenge. But something deeper wanted to say yes out of clarity. I looked around my shop, my shelves, my scents, my story. Then I walked over to the shelf where Cease and Desist still sat. I handed it to Jolene. Take this with you. She read the label, smiled a little, then stood. I meant what I said, she added at the door. You've built something real. I watched her leave. And for the first time since this all began, I felt bigger than the betrayal. I wasn't just the woman he underestimated. I was the woman they now answered to. She came on a Tuesday. No announcement, no smirk, no camera in hand. Just trembling fingers and mascara smudged beneath her eyes like war paint after the battle had already ended. I'd just lit a tester candle by the register still standing fittingly when the door opened, and there she was. Felicity Harper in a hoodie, no heels, no lipstick, no filters. For a second, neither of us spoke. The silence clung to the air like smoke. Then she whispered, "Can we talk?" I didn't nod, I didn't smile, but I didn't say no. She followed me to the small nook behind the counter where I kept the sample jars and the notebook of scent ideas. She stared at the shelves like they were altars. I read every label she said, every damn one. I laughed at first. I thought it was petty, but then I started remembering. She looked up at me, tears welling. Wade told me you were cold, that you didn't care what he did, that you were too busy with your hobby to notice he was miserable. I said nothing, because I'd heard those exact words from Wade's mouth. When he was drunk one night, when he thought I was asleep, Felicity gripped the edge of the stool like it could save her. He lied, she whispered. I see that now. I saw the way you looked at him when he wasn't looking back. I saw the love you gave him, the loyalty, and I helped take it. I thought if I had him, it would mean I won. Her voice cracked, but I didn't win. He's been texting his new dental hygienist, sending selfies, telling her the same things he told me about you. She wiped her face hard. I lost the store, I lost the trust, and now I've lost him too. I leaned back, arms folded. The urge to gloat itched beneath my skin, but I didn't scratch it. You didn't lose anything, I said quietly. You burned it. Felicity nodded. She knew. And then she surprised me. She reached into her purse and pulled out one of my candles. Shame and Sawdust. Half-burned wick low label smudged. I light this every night, she said. It smells like endings. Then she looked at me. Would you ever consider letting me work here? I raised an eyebrow. You want to work for me? She nodded, not because I deserve it, but because I need to remember what it feels like to build something that isn't a lie. The silence between us grew roots, and somewhere inside a strange warmth bloomed. I could say no, I should say no, but I remembered what it felt like to be underestimated, to be dismissed, to be desperate for redemption. So I said, you can start part-time, front of house only, no drama, no stories. You show up, you sweep, you listen. She nodded, thank you. But before she left, she paused by the door. I meant what I said, she added softly. You built something real. And then she was gone. The door chimed behind her, and I stood in the quiet wondering, could enemies become witnesses? Could shame burn clean? Could broken women build together? I didn't know yet. But I did know one thing. Wade hadn't walked into my store since the day I told him I didn't need his permission, and now 2 women he thought he'd conquered were learning how to stand. It was Rosie who asked the question. We were restocking shelves together. She loved helping after school, now that the store felt more like a second home than just Mom's candle thing. She was organizing scent cards alphabetically when she looked up at me and said, Mom, what does forgiveness smell like? I paused. Then I looked down at the tiny glass jar in my hands, a trial scent I hadn't labeled yet. A blend I'd been working on in secret, something soft but strong. Lavender, smoke, fig, a little salt like the sea, like tears. I smiled. I think it smells like this. She picked up the jar, sniffed it, and nodded. It smells like when I stopped crying after you and Daddy stopped yelling. I almost dropped the box in my hands. Children remember everything, even the silences. Do you miss him? I asked before I could stop myself. She shrugged. Sometimes, but I like us now. You're not sad all the time. And just like that, I knew the name of the scent. Forgiveness. Top notes: fig, lavender, ocean salt. Base cedar and clean linen. Label. Hand poured the day I chose peace over punishment. That night I added it to the site. I didn't announce it, didn't tag anyone, didn't even post a video. But it sold out in 3 hours. Because women know. They know what it feels like to carry rage long after the wound has closed. They know what it costs to let go and what it costs not to. A week later, Felicity showed up for her first shift. She wore no makeup, hair pulled back, dressed in black jeans and sneakers like she was stripping down to essentials. She didn't ask for a second chance. She just stocked shelves, swept floors, and took out trash without flinching. It was strange seeing her there, the same woman who once mocked my labels, now reading them with reverence. The same lips that whispered in my husband's ear, now greeting customers with humility. She asked me once quietly, "Why'd you let me in?" I thought about it for a long time. Then I said, "Because someone has to show you what building looks like. You already know how to destroy." And to her credit, she didn't cry. She nodded and kept wiping the counter. Later, when I was closing up, I found a note tucked beneath the cash drawer. It said, "I bought one of your candles long before Wade. I just never told you. I was already jealous of what you were making." It wasn't an apology, but it was something. Maybe that's what forgiveness is. Not forgetting, not excusing, just releasing the poison so it doesn't rot you from the inside. And that night, as I lay in bed alone but whole, I realized something. I didn't need Wade. I didn't even need revenge anymore. I had Rosie. I had a business that meant something. I had shelves full of survival stories that smelled like truth. And in the dark, as I listened to the soft rain hit the windows, I finally slept without clenching my jaw. It had been months since Wade walked through the doors of Porchlight and Sage. But one Thursday afternoon, just as I was closing up and Felicity was counting the drawer in the back, he appeared, holding a sad bouquet from the gas station yellow roses and 2 crushed lilies like time hadn't passed, and this was still his life to walk back into. "Hey," he said, voice soft like the ending of a bad song, "can we talk?" I stood behind the counter, hands still covered in wax from a forgiveness batch, and gave him a flat stare. "You've got 5 minutes." He shifted unprepared. I was wrong. I raised an eyebrow. "I see it now," he continued. "The way I made you small. The way I ignored what you were building because it wasn't about me." I said nothing. Silence was the best weapon I'd learned to wield. I miss Rosie, and I miss you," he said. And that's when I smelled it. Faint, but sharp. The perfume. Not Felicity's anymore, someone else, something younger, floral, a little desperate. He saw the recognition in my face. "It's not like that," he said too quickly. "Wait," I interrupted. "I can smell her on you." The room went still. He looked down like a child caught in the act. "I made a mistake," he mumbled. I walked around the counter, slow and sure. Took the bouquet from his hands, plucked out the 2 crushed lilies, and tossed the rest into the trash can by the door. Then I handed him a candle from the display shelf. Closure. Top notes burn sugar pine citrus peel, base sandalwood and silence. Label, hand poured the day I stopped waiting for you to come home. He read the label, mouth twitching. "You always were dramatic," he said. "No," I replied. "I was always honest. You just never listened." He stood there like he didn't know whether to fight or fold. And then he turned to go. But before he reached the door, I added, "You can see Rosie on Sundays. At my mother's. I'll text you the times." He hesitated. "And us?" "There is no us, Wade." I smiled, not bitter, not sweet, just free. There never really was. The door chimed as it closed behind him. Felicity peeked out from the back, a few seconds later, her face pale. "Did he say anything?" I nodded. "A few things, none of them new." She looked relieved. I thought maybe he was trying to circle back. He always circles back. I placed closure back on the shelf. Not this time, because I'd sealed every exit in my soul that used to let him back in. Later that night, I added closure to the online shop. Wrote in the caption, "Sometimes they bring flowers. Sometimes they bring apologies. Either way, they can't stay." It sold out in 47 minutes. And I realized something. Women don't need romance to feel seen. They need language for the things they've lived through. And my candles. They were the chapters we were never allowed to write out loud. Until now. The lease transfer took exactly 13 minutes to sign. I sat across from the trust's property manager in a small downtown law office that smelled like ink and burnt coffee. Alan, my lawyer, had a pen in one hand and a knowing smirk in the other. "This is poetic, isn't it?" he said as he slid the last page across the table. "You're not just buying a storefront. You're reclaiming a whole narrative." I didn't answer, not with words. I signed my name where Felicity's used to be. 3 strokes of the pen and Magnolia Mercantile was mine, but I wasn't keeping the name. No, that part was dead. Instead, I walked out of that law office and drove straight to the building that had once rejected me. The same place where Jolene had once called my work Etsy level with a curl of her lip. Now the windows were dark, the displays cleared. Felicity had cleared out her inventory 2 weeks ago quietly, without ceremony. She'd known this day was coming. I stepped inside alone. The air was stale and still smelled faintly of cheap lavender and overpriced soap. On the back wall was a gold-painted wooden sign, Magnolia Mercantile. I reached up and took it down. It didn't fight me. The new sign had already been made. Same font as Porchlight and Sage, but cleaner, stronger. Root and ritual. A second location, a new identity, but the same soul. One dedicated to women who'd built from ashes. At the reopening, people showed up in droves. Women I hadn't seen in years. Younger girls who followed me online. Older women who whispered, "I wish I had done what you did back when I had the chance." They cried over candles named, "Not his anymore." Inheritance denied, peace achieved. She took the house, I took my soul. They weren't just products. They were testimonies. Felicity came by quietly during the soft opening. She didn't linger, just stood outside with her hands in her pockets, watching the women file in. I stepped outside. "You okay?" I asked. She nodded. "I didn't think you'd actually do it. Buy it." "No," she said, "heal." I looked at her for a long time. "You helped," I said. "You and Wade both." She gave a small, sad smile. "Does it make me terrible that I'm proud of you?" "No," I said. "It makes you human." She didn't come inside, but she didn't walk away angry either. She left me with silence, and that felt cleaner than any apology. When I walked back in, a young woman at the counter held up a candle. "Did you write this one?" she asked, holding Inheritance Denied, Peace Achieved. I smiled. I lived it. The girl blinked. "It's weird to say, but It makes me feel less alone. And that's when I knew. This was no longer about revenge. This was about resonance. I didn't just survive them. I translated them into wax, into warmth, into light. I used to introduce myself like a shadow. I'm Wade's wife, Rosie's mom, just helping out for the fundraiser, just working on a little candle hobby. That word is a trapdoor for women, a way we shrink ourselves before someone else can. But now I walk into two storefronts that carry my name, my story, my voice. And when people ask what I do, I don't say just anymore. I say I run a candle brand built from heartbreak, healing, and heat. People don't always get it, not right away. Some think it's cute, niche, aesthetic, until they pick up the jar labeled infidelity and eucalyptus and realize this isn't about ambiance. It's about exorcism. It's Felicity stacking shelves with quiet grace and never once asking for favors. It's Jolene retired now sending me hand-embroidered thank you cards that say things like, "Funny how life changes hands when you stop pretending to be better than everyone else." It's Rosie drawing a candle on her "What I Want to Be When I Grow Up" poster. Underneath it, in messy bubble letters, "My mom, she makes truth smell good." I kept that one, framed it, hung it next to the cash drawer where I used to hide my fear. Wade. He visits Rosie every other weekend at my mother's. I don't ask what he's doing these days. I don't care. I heard through town he tried dating a girl who works at the gym, and she left after 3 weeks because he couldn't stop talking about what used to be. I hope he finds peace. I really do. Because I found mine, in jars and wicks and words I was never allowed to say until I learned to sell them. Women don't get second chances in polite conversation. But in candlelight, in wax and ash, and the scent of cedar grief, we get whole new lifetimes. Porchlight and sage, root and ritual. The names of places where brokenness doesn't smell like failure, it smells like fuel. And I am no longer a side note in someone else's story. I'm the author now. The name on the sign. The scent in the room. The lesson they remember. The ribbon-cutting ceremony wasn't extravagant. No marching bands, no fireworks, just a folding table with lemonade, a crowd of 30 or so familiar faces, and a pair of gold-handled scissors passed down from the Chamber of Commerce. But as I stood there holding those scissors flanked by Rosie on one side and Felicity, now my store manager, on the other, I didn't need spectacle. I already had everything I came for. Jolene came, in pearls and a linen dress that matched the clouds. She didn't speak during the ceremony, just clapped once firmly when I cut the ribbon. A final gesture of a woman who had once underestimated me and now quietly respected me. After the ribbon fell, people filtered in noses lifted to the air like they were walking into a memory they hadn't smelled since childhood. Women leaned over the candle table and whispered like the labels were secrets written for them alone. This smells like my divorce in '03. I lit lipstick and lies last week. My husband asked if we could start therapy. My daughter said your candle helped her leave a man twice her age. Thank you. And me, I just smiled. Because this shop was never about candles. It was about voice, about what women say in silence, about what we survive and then turn into something scented and lit and healing. Later that night, after the crowd thinned and Rosie fell asleep in the back room with glitter on her fingers, I stood alone behind the counter. I found a scent I'd created in secret, poured just last week when I realized I hadn't cried in months. Found top notes, tangerine, peony, clean cotton, base sandalwood closure, and the kind of joy that doesn't need an audience. Label. Hand poured the day I realized I didn't need anyone to clap for me. I'd already arrived. The street outside was quiet. Magnolia trees rustled in the breeze. Porchlight and Sage's windows glowed with the soft light of dozens of tiny flames. Root and Ritual's sign cast a proud shadow across the sidewalk. 2 stores, 1 woman. They laughed at my Etsy shop, mocked my dreams, touched my husband, doubted my worth. But I turned that mockery into a map. A roadmap for other women who've been underestimated, used, silenced. Now, I own the block, and they don't laugh anymore. They whisper. They follow. They buy. And I let the candles speak for me now, because I've said everything I needed to say. In wax, in scent, in survival.